the symbolism could hardly be more powerful. The leaders of France, Germany and Poland visited Moldova on the country's National Day on Wednesday. The message from them to Moldova's pro-European president is a simple one. We're here to support Moldova's accession to the EU. It is 1 month before parliamentary elections in Moldova, and the threat of Russian interference is real.
La propagande du Kremlin nous explique que les Européens souhaitent prolonger la guerre et que l'Union européenne opprime les peuples. Ce sont des mensonges. Contrairement à la Russie, l'Union européenne ne menace personne et elle respecte la souveraineté de chacun. C'est une union où chacun décide de rentrer librement, souverainement et où la souveraineté de tous est respectée.
Moldova's president, Maia Sandu, has repeatedly warned of an impending Russian hybrid operation involving vote buying, cyber attacks and disinformation in the run-up to the election campaign. Located between Romania and Ukraine, Moldova is directly affected by the geopolitical turmoil caused by Moscow's war of aggression against Kyiv. Chisinau is therefore seeking closer ties with the EU.
The three leaders of European Union spoke with one voice here in Chisinau. They recalled the Moldova independence from Soviet Union 34 years ago, and also they pledged to help Moldova to join European Union. The plan is to join in 2030, but it depends who will win in this parliamentary election on 28 September. If Russian forces will win, so Moldova will stay in a grey zone in the sphere of influence of Russia. From Chisinau, Vitalie Cojocari, Euronews Romania.
The Russian drone and missile attack killed at least 18 people and injured 48 in the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv. At least 4 children are among the dead in the attack, which used drones, cruise and ballistic missiles. The attack impacted more than 20 locations across the capital, totally destroying a 5-story residential building. Residents were left stunned by the strike as rescue teams searched to find people under the rubble of fallen buildings.
На голову двері. Це все, що було. Всю квартиру розтрощило, у нас 2 машини побило. Так, поки зараз ще дуже не роздивлялися, вийшли одразу на вулицю і пішли в укриття.
Да, чесно, прям от щоб так близько ще ніколи не прилітало. От, ну, в будь-якому разі зараз страждають всі і прилітає в будь-які райони. І, ну, як бачимо, ніякі перемовини поки нічого не дають, люди страждають, на жаль.
The attack is Russia's first major strike on Kyiv since US President Donald Trump met Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska earlier this month. Despite multiple high-level meetings, US-led efforts to bring about an end to the war have struggled to gain traction. "2025 is already a record year for forest fires in Europe, and fire season is far from over. While the continent has seen devastating seasons in the past, this year, surface area burned and the speed at which the fires spread is unprecedented. Leading the way were Italy and Romania, each of which recorded more than 450 fires. The countries that suffered the most damage were not necessarily those that declared the most fires. Cyprus, for example, reported 3 fires, but less damage. Since January 1st, 3% of Portugal, 2.3% of Cyprus and 0.8% of Spain have gone up in smoke.
And a lot of the fires that we've been monitoring and observing are occurring where the climate anomalies show that it's much drier than average and where it's warmer than average. And generally, this is a common feature when we're monitoring wildfire emissions, that they occur under these conditions, and particularly where There's hot, dry winds blowing. Any ignition can flare up very rapidly to large-scale and very intense wildfires.
More than 1 million hectares of land was burned through in the EU this year. That's more than 4 times as much as last year. In total, more than 1,800 forest fires were declared active, emitting more than 38 million tonnes of CO2.
We need a combination of different fire behavior factors. So this is weather, this is topography, this is vegetation, biomass, fuel. But the precondition for everything to happen is the weather. So the climate change scenarios provide the perfect envelope for all the other factors to work together for the perfect fire day or perfect firestorm.
Experts have sounded the alarm. Under these conditions, which will become increasingly common in the future, fires are getting out of control.
Our firefighting system comes to its limits, and the only thing we can do is preparing the landscape, making it more resilient, better prepared, so then the firefighters have a chance to work safely and efficient. But continuing like this and hoping that more firefighting resources will solve the problem we saw this year, this is clearly not the way forward.
So far, the exact number of deaths from the fires is unconfirmed. Smoke and disease can also claim lives long after the fires have been extinguished.
No, Spain's wildfires were not deliberately started for construction projects. Spain is battling its worst wildfire season in 3 decades, with several major fires ravaging hundreds of thousands of hectares across several regions. The fires were made worse by the summer heatwaves. However, a wave of online disinformation is claiming that the wildfires were caused on purpose to clear the land for construction projects, but this claim is false. Spain has a law called La Ley de Montes that explicitly forbids changing the use of any forest land affected by fire for 30 years. It's a safeguard specifically designed to prevent intentional burning for development. There are only 2 exceptions. The first is in case land use changes were already approved before the fire. The second allows a change if it's necessary to build infrastructure that will be essential for the public interest. This means that developers cannot exploit fires to bypass these rules, so claims that there are loopholes like selling or burning land to force reclassification are entirely false. Other false posts claim that the blaze in Cádiz in Andalucía was started on purpose to enable several coastal developments. The fire in Antlanterra in Tarifa passed near 2 housing developments, but these plots had already been designated as urban land. Besides, they were not damaged by the fire. Another rumor claims that the fires would facilitate construction on a luxury tourism project in El Lendiscal. But not only is this project planned outside of the burn zone within a natural park, it has also not even entered the construction approval process yet. Meanwhile, near Madrid, a wildfire in Tres Cantos was linked to a new solar farm. But the solar plant site is 12 kilometers away in a different municipality, has had its full approval since 2024, and did not rely on any fire-related land clearance.
How challenging is it for Europeans with disabilities to make ends meet? Nearly 87 million people in the EU have some form of disability, and many of them are struggling financially. In 2024, almost 1 in 4 people with a disability said they struggle to make ends meet, compared with about 1 in 6 people without a disability. This inequality is visible in every EU country. However, people with disabilities are less likely to suffer financial difficulties in Luxembourg, Germany, the Netherlands, or Finland. By contrast, in Greece and Bulgaria, more than half of respondents reported having difficulties in making ends meet. If affording basic spendings is already hard, unexpected expenses can be even worse. 38% of people with a disability live in households that could not cope with an unexpected expense, compared with 26.5% of people without a disability. This figure is higher in Lithuania and Bulgaria and lower in the Netherlands and Luxembourg. Social benefits and allowances make a huge difference. Without them, nearly 70% of Europeans with disabilities would have been at risk of poverty in 2024. Yet even with social support, the at-risk of poverty rate remains above 30% in the Baltic states and Croatia.
one has what appears to be a bony collar around its neck with four huge spikes sticking out of the side of it. Now, some of the spikes are broken, it has been in the ground for 165 million years, so it's not in perfect condition. But one of these spikes is 87 centimeters long. And of course, in life, it would have been covered in some sort of horny covering, you know, like our fingernails are made out of, that sort of material. So it would have been even longer. And yeah, we have a whole range of other kind of isolated spikes stuck to each other. We have these kind of teardrop shaped plates, and we don't really know where all of those go on the body. We think that this animal was using this armour not just for defence, as is generally thought to be the case with these armoured dinosaurs, but also potentially for some sort of display. Maybe it was showing off to attract a mate, or maybe it was being used in some sort of courtship fighting, like deer do, or something like that. We can't be sure, but it seems like massive overkill to have these enormous spikes just to defend itself.